Welcome to Camp Nightmare Fuel. Thanks again for being with us. Tonight, we are once again joined by my fellow Camp Nightmare counselors, Lord Starfox and Brian Barber. We're also so happy to have Dr. Dennis Carroll once again join us. Tonight, we're going to be talking about a very, very scary subject. There's books that have been banned. However, they're still available to be read. Some people don't realize the power of these books. There is a book that is called a Grimoire. It really can have a profound negative effect on people. But before we get into that, I again want to thank Dr. Carroll for joining us, and he's going to walk us through this. But first, let's say hello to my fellow camp counselors. Lord Starfox, how are you doing tonight?
What's up, my friend? I am here. I am a little bit beat up. Was playing some hockey with my nieces. Took a couple pucks to the good old noggin in the mask, and my knee's a little sore, but I'm good. So,
Well, I'm so sorry to hear that. Sounds like a good time with your nieces, obviously, as usual. But, thanks for joining us, and I hope you're going to be okay. How are you doing, Brian?
I am doing okay. Excited, and hopeful that after doing the last show with Dr. Carroll, that maybe we can put some of these past mistakes behind me. Seems like I like to, as they say, FAFO a lot. This one's been haunting me since roughly 88.
So Brian, I know this is it's very deeply personal, but it has deeply affected you. So if you could just share with our listeners whatever you feel comfortable with sharing about the circumstances surrounding this book that you read. We're not going to name the book. We're just going to call it a grimoire. I feel this book has that much power. So again, we're not even going to name the book. Brian, if you could just, again, whatever you're comfortable sharing with us.
So how this whole thing got rolling was, I met this girl my freshman year. So that would have been, I graduated at 89. So 85, I met her. I was very shy at the time and would literally just smile at her every day. And after about 3 months of it, she literally grabbed me by my shirt, pushed me into the locker and said, "Are you ever going to talk to me?" And I just busted out laughing. We laughed, and then we were, instant friends and pretty much inseparable for a very long time. And I would go to her house and hang out. We would talk, and there was mention as we got closer and closer, that she was a practicing light witch, her and two friends together regularly. And keep in mind, we're, 14, 15 years old. She was a year older than me, so 15, 16. And I had some, I've talked about before, paranormal stuff happen. And when I saw a copy of a certain book, I'm like, "What's that?" And she's like, "Oh, that's something you don't want to mess with." She said, "Such and such, and it will mess you up even if you just read it and you don't practice any of the spells in it." She said, "Don't even mess with it." She literally kept a copy of this book on her nightstand by her bed. And of course, being all I heard was, read the book, and went ahead and read this book. And there are different ones. This book is very detailed. Again, we're not going to name it. It has spells in it. It has ways to open, there's 7 gates to pass through if you want to get the full effect of everything. And I started reading this book. When I got to the point of gate 5 and passed through that, I started having some very vivid nightmares. And, this would have started, we had graduated. So by the time we got close enough for me to know the book was by her nightstand, it was about 19 years old. And they were intermittent at first. So terrifying is the only word I could think of. Literally trying to fight off monsters and demons chasing me, and would wake up, with a few scratches here and there. But I don't know if I did that in my sleep or something else did. It happened maybe once a month. But as time went on, these dreams became more frequent. And even though I had chucked the book at the time, I later moved book in my books. No, I chucked that book, but oh well, so I would chuck it again. Now I've been in my place for 10 years. The last time I saw the book was about 2 years ago. So every time I would move, I made sure I didn't have it, and yet somehow this book would show up again. At first, I just thought it was someone messing with me because she did help me move several times. She knows I've had issues with dreams with it. So I thought maybe she's just effing around with me. But when I moved this time, she had nothing to do with it. And yet that book turned up. So I chucked it again. And the dreams have been nonstop this whole time. They'll go in streaks where maybe I'll only get one a week, and then there'll be streaks where I get them for 2 or 3 weeks right in a row. And it's literally, as best I can describe, shadow figures grabbing my family, me trying to punch the shadow figures off my family, grabbing my kid, trying to take my kid, and playing on the guilt of when my dad, unalived himself. And it literally felt like some form of torture from the standpoint that, I would go through these events and would be fighting with everything I had, yet I felt like I was moving in slow motion. But in reality, I'm thrashing in the bed. I've hit a couple people. I've been married a couple times and wound up hitting them in my sleep. It got dangerous to a point where if I thought I was going to have one, I would sleep on the couch. And as we went, it was about a year ago now, I had a dream and I came across and broke the nightstand and broke my hand at the same time, trying to punch somebody off, trying to take my dad. So these nightmares are relentless. And every time I wake up, it's like, I don't want to go back to sleep. I am not going back to sleep to go back into that world. And there'll be, if I have 2 or 3 of them in a row, I'll pull a 3 or 4 day, not go to sleep at all. I'll take, pre-workout or whatever just to stay awake at night. And then it gets to the point where I have to call in sick just because I'm going to drop from not falling asleep. So these dreams have been terrifying. And the longest I've gone, maybe without one, is 10 days to 2 weeks. And a lot of them repeat. So they didn't start until I read the book. And then no matter what I do to get rid of the book, it seems to come back. And the nightmares never stop. Elaine's woken me up, I don't know how many times. And I've got a dog. I'm going to sit here and cry because I wound up pinching him or squeezing him because I'm trying to get the demon off of this person or get him away from my family or get away from me. Punishing to the point of physically as well. I've broken my hand. I've bruised my arm, swinging, kicked myself out of bed a couple times, trying to kick things off people or try to kick them away. It's been brutal. And then crushing on the soul, just don't want it, I just want them to end. That's all I can think about when I wake up. I just want them to go away. And, for me, for a long time, it was just not going to sleep. It's like, I can pull 2 or 3 days. Heck, I can, I know enough about supplements and stuff. I can make this work for a few days and then take a chance, get a day's sleep and do it over again. But it beats you up after a while doing that. It's obviously not healthy. Your brain doesn't reset. And, it's depressing. Sometimes I wonder how much of this is attached to some of the disorders I have, such as, depression and PTSD. The events happened with my dad and from when, and how much is my subconscious feeding on all this guilt and, rage at times, because there are times where, this sadness expresses itself as rage, which is why the gym is good for me, because I can release that rage in a way to release the negative energy just for a minute and try to get positive returns, but it does build up. And even Elaine will pick up on it. If I haven't worked out in a few days, she's like, you really need to go to the gym because you're being a prick. So, and it's unintentional. It's nothing she did. It's all on me. And because these dreams get to the point where when I've had them for 3 or 4 days in a row, all I do is think about them and how bad I don't want to go to sleep the next night, and then sometimes like I've had a break from them now it's been about 12 days, 10 or 12, last night was a mild one. I wound up pinching Bear's leg and he, growled and bit me, which was well deserved. I was glad it wasn't worse. But I think it all stems from cracking that book after I was told not to, because that's when they started. Once I passed that 5th gate, there was some minor stuff because I didn't read everything all at once. It was a little bit here, a little bit there, because it got pretty creepy. And because of the fact it actually calls for a certain, I don't know if you could say it on the air, unaliving of things to these beings. Some of them were pretty graphic, and actually reading in your head these chants. I mean, yeah, I've had other dreams where I feel bad about what happened with my dad, and but actually be able to talk to him. And in the nightmares, it's not talk. It's like he can't talk, even though he wants to. And then things like torture him and grab him and hitting on him and hitting on me and choking me, and I'm swinging with everything I got or kicking with everything I got to get free. don't realize that they aren't real. They are so vivid, they feel so real. And then I wake up, I'm in sweating, or Lane's got screaming at me to wake up because she doesn't know why I have the nightmares, but she can verify the nightmares are pretty, to see me sitting there thrashing around and breaking multiple objects. There's on the headboard, there's a couple of the posts broken out. Nightstand's got a piece missing off it. Cut my hand because I smashed it on a glass decoration on the nightstand. My poor pillows, I had the stuffing beat out of them, literally. So, and I just thought I was stuck with this for life. I thought it was, but then when we did the show with Dr. Carroll a couple weeks ago, he mentioned things that you shouldn't fool around with because you don't understand them. And, as they say, FAFO. And I thought, wait a minute, maybe Dr. Carroll's capable of helping me with this, because maybe there is a way out of these things. Because I do believe in God. I don't go to church, but I do have my beliefs very firm, Lord, Son, Holy Ghost, all that, and try to live my life in a good way. I honestly believe I'll make it through the pearly gates. Instead of a, 3-word chat, I'm sure I probably got an encyclopedia to go through before I get through, but, I'm going to make it. So to be crushed by these dreams, it's just like, why? When will it end? And, is my last breath going to be to one of these nightmares? And, as dumb as it sounds, if I'm having a nightmare and passing my sleep, which way am I going to go? So it's just weird little questions like that and doubt. And that's where we're at.
Thank you for sharing that, Brian. One of the things that you had mentioned was about depression, and I suffer, I think a lot of us do. We suffer from that off and on, but when I was younger, it was pretty bad. And I remember talking to a counselor about it, and she had said that depression is anger turned inward for many people. And I thought that was very profound for me, because that's exactly what I was doing with a lot of the things in my life, that I couldn't control, and I was angry about, and I was just turning that anger inward. There's nothing else I could do about it but just swallow it, and it does. It does build up and it does affect you. But Dr. Carroll, what can you say to Brian? What are your thoughts on what Brian has shared with us?
That's very interesting. I think the book is only part of this problem. The book may have been a trigger, definitely. And there are actually 9 gates. The 2 final gates are very secretive. Okay. Luckily, you didn't get that far. It's good. If we're going to get something good out of this, definitely that's good that you didn't go that far. Let me say this about grimoires. Okay. They're very dangerous and very evil books. They not only have spells, hexes, rituals attached to them, but they are also ways of raising and communicating and connecting with the demonic. And that is definitely something you never ever want to do in any form or fashion. But also, I want to say this to you, Brian. I think you have some psychological problems, and there's nothing wrong with that. It can be like, an infirmity of any other kind, like a bad leg or bad back, or, you can have psychological issues too. And let me say this, the demonic uses that many times to attack you with, because that is one of your weak spots. Okay. And that's the way the demonic works. It goes after your weakness. It always does that. And, one more thing I want to say about that before we move on with some other stuff about the dreams. I want to say this about your depression, your PSTD, what you're talking about with your father and all that. There's something you're going to have to begin this day. You're going to have to take one step forward. It's like that old Chinese saying, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. And you're going to have to take that step today, Ryan, towards forgiving yourself. You cannot heal. You cannot get with your relationship right with God. You can't do anything like that until you forgive yourself for some things that you have done. Okay, it's very, very important that you do that. And you're going to have to start working on that, forgiving yourself first. God then can forgive you, and you'll have a definitely better outcome with that. But you've got to learn to forgive yourself. I know we have all done things in the past that we're not proud of, and some things that may have happened to us and we reacted badly to it. And that's just being human. And we've got to understand we're not perfect, and we have to forgive ourselves before we can move on. If we don't, then you're stuck forever in the past. You're a victim of the past. And you don't want to do that. You don't want to stay a victim the rest of your life. I tell that to a lot of people over the years. Darkness wants to keep us as victims because it fears us. And that's when we have to step up. We have to take that shield of faith, that sword of the Spirit, and become the true warriors we need to be to combat the darkness, not only in this world, but the darkness that is trying to get into our lives. When you opened that book, you opened a door to your soul. Unknowns by you, you probably didn't realize that, but you opened the door. You invited it into your life. And now you're going to have to deal with that situation. And that's where the dreams began, because the dreams are a definite sure sign of spiritual attack. You're not in your possession. You are in the level of oppression. You are being oppressed by these things. You are being attacked. Okay. And there's only one way for you to fight this, and that is to fight back. Okay. That you got to understand that. Here's another step you will have to take today. You will have to actively begin to fight back against this in many different ways, not just by trying to live a good life, but by actively renewing your mind and your spirit through the Holy Spirit, and that will enable you to combat this darkness that's trying to take over your life. I have been attacked many times myself in dreams, and I'll tell you why that is. You're more vulnerable when you are in the dream state. You're very close to death. You're very close to the veil, to the other side, whether you realize it or not. And that's where these things will attack you many times in your dreams. I was going to ask you something. Have you had any kind of other paranormal activity happen around you? Maybe seeing shadow figures or something like that along those lines. Has that happened with you lately?
Yeah, there's a shadow figure that one of the psychics picked up on. So it's a little kid, and the dog will start barking in the laundry room. I'll catch a glimpse of a shadow figure in there. And every once in a while, I have a 60-gallon saltwater tank, and I'll be sitting there and hear a little noise and look over, and all of a sudden the coral will tip over in the tank, and I'll put it back up. And it's happened maybe 3 times. And I used to have now, but I have a room that I podcast from. It's dedicated to the Incredible Hulk, and I have a Hulk figure who sits on the top shelf. And for a while, I would hear thump. I'd walk in and look around, and one of the figures had jumped clear across the room somehow. So I put it back up there and didn't think anything of it. And a few months later, I hear thump. I go in, and the same figure has launched itself across the room again. Another friend of mine recommended getting a prayer bear blessed. Had it done for me, and I put the blessed prayer bear up next to the figure. And since then, it quit. But the shadow figures still catch glimpses. The dog will start barking, at nothing. And it's not just the dog. The cats will sit there and look in the same direction the dog barks.
It's very interesting. Definitely. That kind of shows that you're definitely having some paranormal activity connected with this. That's always another sign of demonic oppression. And you got to realize that that's what this is. It's demonic. Okay. And that's why you're having these such horrific dreams. You're being attacked, not only mentally, Brian, but emotionally as well. Spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. You're being attacked along those fronts. And that's why your dreams are so violent and so, emotional. That's the way they want to get you. Let me tell you something. It's something you've got to understand about the demonic. An old exorcist told me this many years ago, and it's very, very true. They're all about theatrics, okay? They're trying to freak you out. They're trying to get you scared, worried, depressed, negative. They're trying to get you that way because they feed off of you that way. And you've got to break that. You've got to break the feed. You got to stop feeding them, okay? That's the one thing you got to start thinking about today. Believe me, I've talked with people about this thing all over the world, okay? You've got to quit feeding the beast. And that means you've got to be more positive in your life. You've got to have more positive influence. And let me say this, okay? This transcends religion. Religion is a man-made thing. You gotta remember that. A true relationship with God goes far beyond that. Way far beyond that. God is no religion. Definitely not. And you got to remember, that's what you're going to have to start fostering. That's what I mean by renewing of the mind. You're going to have to start thinking along more lines of positive. You're going to have to start thinking of goodness. You're going to have to start doing more of this. Here's something else you got to understand about the demonic, and they're very good at this. They not only isolate you, and they will try eventually to isolate you from any kind of help, or anybody, from your friends, from your family. They will try to isolate you, and then they try to turn you inward. It's like Barbara said. They try to turn you inward, with anger and depression and all these other bad juice that they use on you. They try to turn you inward so that you can only see yourself and you can no longer see God. You can no longer see anybody, even the people that love you. That's what they want to do to you, Brian. And you've got to actively fight against that. You got to, from this day, beginning today, you're going to have to seek that renewal of the mind that comes only from the Holy Spirit. You're going to have to let that into your life and have that renewing of the mind so that you won't think along these same lines anymore. You're going to have a new mind and a new way about this. This doesn't solve all your problems. I know that. There's no thing that does. But if you're still having psychological problems, you might need to think about or consider more counseling. Once you turn outward from yourself, you can get more help. And that's what I was talking about. You're concerned with not forgiving yourself. You're concerned with staying in the past, whatever that is. That's holding you back, and you've got to deal with that too. You don't want this to hold you back, okay? The past is past, my friend. There's nothing you can do about it. The only thing you can do about it is here and now and the future. Hopefully, if we live long enough to see the future, we can do something about that, definitely. But right now, we've got to live for here and now, and we've got to deal with that way. And when it comes to these demonic forces, and I'm sure that there is a spirit attached to this book, which is why I say if it does reappear in your home, send it to me. I know what to do with it. Okay, because I had a lot of other items like that sent to me, what needs to be done with them. It is an attachment. These things can have attachments, and that's what you've run into here. That's what the trigger was for a lot of this. But you were already, shall I say, conditioned for this in many ways because of things that have happened in your life. You got to understand that too. And the only way you're going to break this is to quit feeding that negative. And that's what the demonic is all about. Negative, negative, negative. They're all some people call it the loosh, whatever name you want to give it. You've got to break that cycle and say, I'm not going to play this game with you anymore. Once they're like spiritual bullies. Once you stand up to them and actively push back against them, most of the time, they're going to back off. That's just the way they work. And don't forget this. They're trying to play games with your mind. That's where they attack you at, too. They're trying to get you to believe things that are not real and not true. You got to understand that's how they work, too. And you've got to seek that renewal of the mind. And that is an act of faith upon your part. That you've got to begin actively to pursue that right now, here and now.
So how do I go about doing that? I guess would be the first question. I mean, what steps?
Well, first of all, you're definitely, we will pray with you tonight, okay, to begin this process. But you're going to actively change your life to accommodate this. That's the first thing. That's the first step you got to take. To begin saying, I'm not going to think like this anymore. I'm going to lay down. I'm not going to be scared to go to sleep anymore. Don't you see, they're using fear against you, Brian. Fear is a weapon against you. Don't fall for the fear. That's what you're going to have. Absolutely. It's got to be faith over fear, my friend. It's got to be faith over fear, or you're not going to win this battle. And you got to start saying here now, I'm not going to fall for these tricks anymore. I'm not going to be afraid to fall asleep. I'm not going to be worried about that. And here's another thing. There are certain things you can do. You can say prayers before you go to sleep, and you need to go to sleep while saying prayers. This gives you peace. This gives you a outward centeredness. Instead of looking in, it lets you look out. And it gives you a peace of mind too. And settles the spirit and the soul and the body. It relaxes you. You need to pray. You need to just say, I'm going to go to sleep tonight praying. Whatever you want to pray about. Whatever you feel, whatever your deepest fears are, you need to turn those over to God. Because God, my friend, is your only help in this situation. You must understand that. God is the only thing that can free you from this oppression. And you got to start working towards that. And you got to take steps for it. And this, you also have got to get outside of yourself. You need to probably go do things for other people and start thinking more about other people. That's what I'm saying. They're trying to turn you in on yourself. They're trying to turn you into a narcissist. You understand what I'm saying? That's the way they work. They get your mind off of the important things with their theatrics. And I'm going to tell you something. You are a child of God. God died and paid a price for you. You are worth something. They know that. And I'm going to tell you something right now, Brian. You've got to Embrace what I'm about to tell you. Listen very closely. Jesus Christ went to the cross and died to give you authority over this stuff. You have authority over it. All you need to do is exercise that authority. You can cast these things out of your life. You can make them go away. They have no hold on you, my friend. They have nothing they can do against you because you are a child of God. If you believe in God and you have faith in God, you can take that authority against these things. What did Jesus tell you in the Bible? He said, behold, I give you power over all the power of the enemy. You can tread on serpents and scorpions, and nothing by any means will harm you. This is a sacred promise that he went to the cross to seal this deal for us. We have authority over these things. They know that, but they don't want you to know that because they're shaking in their boots when you find this out. And this is the way you've got to begin to actively attack back against these things, these forces that are trying to destroy your life. What they are after, Brian, is not just to destroy your life, my friend, but to take your very soul. You do not want to lose this battle.
No, I don't. Like I said before, I literally, until hearing you last week, a couple of weeks ago, my way of life. As far as the prayers go, it's just prayer about anything, or specifically what I'm dealing with. It's not a particular psalm or anything.
Well, as the Bible says, with all of Thanksgiving, we need to present our petitions to God. Whatever's worrying you, whatever's bothering you, you need to take it to God. Okay, He is there to help you, to comfort you. The Holy Spirit, that's part of His job, is to also comfort you. You need to ask God to give you discretion and the aid of the Holy Spirit in your life, and to give you the knowledge to fight and combat these things. He will give you these gifts if you simply ask for them. But you got to remember something very important, Brian, and I do not want you to forget this. This is what Jesus says in the Bible, okay? Believe and receive, and you will have it. That's pretty plain, okay? That's not a code you got to work out. That's not something you got to think about. That's very plain. If you pray and believe and receive it, then you will have it. That's how simple that is. And that's the way you're going to have to learn to pray. I want to tell you something. These things, and you got to understand this, the demonic wants to take all hope away from you, my friend. They want to take you to the edge of the cliff and remove all hope from you so that you will jump over that cliff for them. That's the way these cowards work. Don't you fall for that. You've got hope. As long as there's breath in your body, there is hope. And God is that hope, my friend. He is that shining hope that can deliver you. But you've got to believe that, and you've got to receive it.
It's funny because even though we're not on camera, I feel like you're reading me like a book, because I'm sure Barb and Kenny can tell you sometimes, I'll go through streets where it might take me 2 or 3 days before I respond to anything. I haven't become narcissistic, but I have become isolated in a way that, depending on the day, I won't even look at my phone. I don't want to burden people by talking to them about things. And that's a lot of the time how I feel, is if I open up besides what's going on in their lives, like I burden them by talking. And I need to be in good shape, as good as I can be mentally, physically, and spiritually, because of the fact, my girlfriend requires 24-hour care, and I don't want to be I want to be a positive influence and not just a negative caregiver or seem indifferent, and I don't want her worrying about me breaking my hand again when I'm dreaming. So that's why you talking to me is, I can't express the appreciation, trying to forgive something that, things that have bothered me, some since I was 16, some since I was 29, some since I was 20, and have carried it all. So I need to figure out how to do that.
Brian, you are such a good person that, okay, look what you do for Elaine. I have seen you say, I can't go to the hospital, even though I should go to an emergency room because of my own health, which, could be basically saving your life, because what's going to happen to Elaine? That's like, you're like the most selfless person. I could just cry. Like, you are such a good person. I think that, the demons would love nothing more to ruin your life and get at you. What do you think about that, Dr. Carroll?
Absolutely, I absolutely agree with that. Like I said, they would love to turn you into a narcissist. I don't think you are, but I mean, they would love to turn you into one. They want to turn you in on yourself so that you can only see your problem. You can't see anybody else. This is what isolates you, and that's why I say you need to work against that. But definitely, but let me tell you this, my friend. Okay, the things that have happened in the past, we've got to forgive ourselves for them. We've got to surrender that to God, or we'll never be healed from it. Don't you understand? And he can't. It's keeping God from healing us and helping us when we don't do that. And it's very, very important that we release this and turn it over to him and say, I surrender it to you now. There's nothing I can do about it. Whatever it was, whatever the past has been, that belongs to you now, God. I turn it over and give it to you. I no longer have it. And God cannot fix anything, my friend, unless we turn it over to him and put it in his hands, okay? It's just that simple. Just like if you had a broken clock and I was the only one in the world could fix it, unless you turn it loose, I can't do that. And that's what you got to do with this. You got to turn this stuff loose, Brian. And you got to say, I got to let go and let God. I know that sounds contrite, but that's true. I mean, it works. You have to surrender these things in order to get them taken care of by higher power. That's just the way that works. The demonic does not want you to know that. Don't you understand? They want to keep you from this knowledge because they want to keep you spiritual prisoner. You got to break this. You got to break this jail tonight. You got to jailbreak tonight, man. And you got to say, hey, I'm not going to take this anymore. You're not going to do me this way anymore. I'm worth something. God died for me. That makes me worth something. And I'm gonna push back. I'm not gonna let you push me around anymore. Not in my dreams, not in my waking time, nowhere. Am I gonna let you push me around anymore? That's the way you're gonna have to look at this. You're gonna have to get mad about this. You know, I've had a lot of instances where people have tried to cast out demons and they say, would you please leave? Would you please, I'm begging you to leave. You don't do that. You command these things. You speak with authority, and they will listen. And they will move out of your life. But you got to speak with authority. Like that authority I said earlier, you must believe that authority because it's real, it's true, it's what God has given you. Listen to this passage from the Bible. To them who believe upon his name, gave he power to become the sons and daughters of God. He has given you power. Now it's your turn to use it.
Well, I will definitely be taking new steps and new authority in doing this. So I tend to overanalyze everything, which is hilarious because, you know, my dad used to get on me quite a bit for the old saying, you know, keep it simple, stupid. Sometimes I just can't believe things are that easy. So, but in this case, I'm going to have to try to shut that part of my brain off and say it is that easy. Just do what he says. You know, Dr. Carroll knows what he's talking about. And I can tell you care by even though we're not on camera, with the passion in your voice, and speechless because, you know, I appreciate the help and have hope that, because I want to be a better person. That's, you know, every day I get up, it's like I want to be better than I was yesterday. It may not be physical, but if I can and that's always been a goal of mine for at least 10 years now. If I can say, even if it's saying the stupidest thing, makes me look like a complete tart muffin, make somebody laugh or smile, then that's what I want to do. But at the same time, I want to be able to laugh and smile inside myself. So I do need to take control of this.
I also have to say that that when you said about how you know, there's days that you just can't. You can't look at your phone, or you can't. You know, there's certain things. I think that's true of many of us. Like certainly that whether it's, I mean, certainly true of me. Whether it's that I'm too sensitive, like things just get to be too much, and you have to kind of like refocus, recenter, compartmentalize all those things, even if it's for just a day or two, because these things do get to be too much. And I also want to say, and you guys know what I've been through in my life with demonic oppression, and it's not something that's it doesn't stop. I feel like, especially because now they know that you're onto them, and they're going to try to attack you, you know, potentially in other ways. But you know, now Dr. Carroll's giving you tools, and you know what to do. Would you agree about that, Doctor?
Absolutely, Barbara. You know, it's very important that we not lose sight on this stuff that we're doing. And I agree with you, Brian. We tend to overthink things sometimes when it's a very simple thing. And we got to be very careful about that, because you know who the author of confusion is. He wants you to confuse. He wants you to overthink. I think the great perfection of God is his simplicity in many things. We've got to understand that. Something else I want to tell you about, and I recently had this on several programs. People have been very concerned about having tainted blood. And I said, it doesn't matter what's in our past. If there's some kind of darkness back in there, there's nothing we could do about that. But we do about what's with us right now, here and today. We can either embrace that darkness or embrace the light. That's still our choice. And that's your choice too, Brian. That's everybody's choice. We have choices to make, choices that are very important, and we need to make the right choices in these things. And let me say one more thing, and it's very interesting. My grandmother told me many, many years ago, she was a great Christian lady. She said, when the devil's not attacking you, then's when you better start worrying, because he's probably got you. So you are being under attack here. Okay, it's kind of a good sign, because that means they haven't got you. If they quit attacking, there's something wrong, because they attack all of us in many different ways. And like Barbara said, in this age that we live in now, we're so convoluted. We have so many things pressing on us, family, obligations, jobs, everything, all this stuff. We need to step away from that once in a while. We need to step away from the phones and the computers and just go off alone somewhere and commune with God and find that peace that we need in our lives. And you know what? When we be quiet and we listen, God will talk to you. You just got to listen and you'll hear him. Okay. But you got to be quiet to hear him. That's just the way that works. Because God doesn't shout at you in the thunder of a storm. He whispers to you because you're precious to him. And when these things attack you, there's something very important you must remember. You must invoke the blood of Jesus Christ against these things, because that works against this dark. If these things, when they start bothering you, even in your dream, you can do this. You can say, get away from me. The blood of Jesus Christ covers me. Get away from me. Be gone. Get behind me, demon. That's all you gotta do. And they will cease their attack, because they cannot stand the mention of that blood, because there is really, truly power in the blood. And they know that. They recognize it. And if you use that against them, that's a very valuable weapon. Don't ever forget that. The blood of Jesus Christ works wonders.
Yeah, that's excellent stuff right there by all y'all. I love being able to be here with you. On my final thoughts real quick here before I do have to boogie out is, Brian, remember, man, everything's in the eye of the beholder, and anytime you need to talk about stuff, man, just definitely shoot me a text. Dennis, I love you, man. I mean, I'll be linking up with you soon this week as well. I believe Barb's joining us too. Always
Yes,
great
I am.
stuff.
Yep. Looking forward to it.
So always great stuff by you as well, man. I appreciate your time here, just like Barbers and I know the rest of us. And of course, Barb, yes, I will be seeing you very soon again, and great job holding down the fort and presenting an awesome topic right here. I love all y'all, and I do appreciate the time here. So definitely keep your heads up, and great stuff. And I will talk to everyone here very soon.
Such beautiful words from Lord Star Fox. We appreciate and love you, buddy. I know I'll talk to you soon.
Yep.
All right.
Awesome.
Love y'all. See you soon.
Love you too. Bye-bye.
Or Dr. Carroll, do you have any comments you'd like to make before we move forward?
Brian's got anything else he wants to ask about, or right now?
Yeah, today I told Barb about this before the show. It was almost like whatever is happening was ramping up a little bit today, because my pain's a little higher, which, I mean, that could be coincidence. But the fact that Elaine didn't sleep at all last night, because I was tossing and turning. Like I told Barb, when the caregiver got ready to leave, she asked me if I had given, Elaine has medicinal stuff for her MS, asked me if I had given her a magic brownie. I said, no, not unless you did. And she said, well, it was really weird, because as Elaine was going to sleep, she kept thinking she was seeing demons peeking around things. So I'm wondering if this is going to possibly ramp up, and what can I do or what does she need to do to not be affected by this?
Well, I want you to contact me later, definitely, Brian, and I will tell you how you need to spiritually cleanse your house. I think that would be a good idea at this point. Because, the book was brought into your house. This might be a good idea, and these other influences have sort of, taken the atmosphere in your house as their own in many ways. So I will tell you how to do that, okay? One more thing I wanted to stress to you is that once you start trying to set yourself free from this oppression, they're going to fight a little bit harder against you. You need to realize that. But don't worry about that, because that means you're doing the right thing here. You're doing what you need to do. And if they increase their attack a little bit, be ready for it, okay? Because that's just the way they do. You're pushing them out, and they're not going to usually take that line down kind of thing, So when that happens, be ready for it. But hold the line on it, okay? You got to hold the line, and it will get better. But they want you to try to give in. They want you to give in, but don't you do that. You hold on. You hold that line against them, okay?
Yeah, I will definitely put this into practice, because this has been almost 40 years of just persistent nightmares, and kind of at a loss for words. But we'll definitely try to stand my ground now and put this into practice, because I want this to end, and I don't want Elaine to be affected by it. And I will definitely I'm grateful beyond words for you helping me with this, and the fact that you're going to help me as far as with how to cleanse the house and things like that too. Thank you very much.
Dr. Carroll, this is so amazing to have you as this resource. And I know that you had mentioned in the past that you are available to help people that want to seek spiritual guidance and want to seek release from these sort of things. Would you please share with us where the listeners, how they can contact you?
I can be contacted at DennisWCarroll.com. I have a paranormal consulting service, and also goes over into demonology and other factors as well. You can contact me with any questions, concerns, problems, whatever. DennisWCarroll.com. My podcast on Monday nights at 9:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Road Less Traveled with Gerald Fountain. And on Wednesday nights, Hunting the Shadows at 9:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And on Friday night, Paranormal Point of View at 9:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Thank you very much for that. And with that, we are going to close out this episode of Camp Nightmare Fuel. I want to again thank you, Brian, for sharing all of this with us. And I want to thank Dr. Carroll for, again, being such a valuable resource.